Good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone. I'm going to call the meeting to order. Would everyone please stand for a short prayer and a salute to our flag? Almighty God, grant us the wisdom to make those decisions that are in the best interest of all our residents. May the Heavenly Father of us all bless those who have given the ultimate sacrifice in service to our nation, and may He watch over and protect our servicemen and women now guarding the gates of freedom. Salute to our flag. Jerry, statement of publication.
Yes, Mayor, take notice that this regular meeting of the Mayor and Borough Council being held on this 9th day of October 2018 has been advertised and posted in accordance with Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231, Public Law 1975.
Roll call.
Councilpersons Buchanan.
Here.
Grillo.
Here.
Kilpatrick.
Here.
Lembo.
Here.
Melendez.
Here.
Novak.
Here.
Council President, approval of minutes of the Mayor and Council.
Thank you, Mayor. I move the following minutes of the mayor and council be approved on roll call vote, subject to correction if necessary. The September 11, 2018 regular executive and agenda session minutes, September 18, 2018 receipt of bids, September 24, 2018 regular agenda and executive session minutes, September 25, 2018 special meeting, and September 26, 2018 receipt of bids.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, with that, we have two proclamations and presentations tonight. Terry, if you would do the veterinary technician week, please.
Whereas veterinary technicians are an important member of any veterinary healthcare team, work in veterinary medicine throughout the nation are extremely important in the efforts to provide quality animal health care to ensure humane treatment of all animals. Whereas there are over 60 accredited programs throughout the United States which provide study and skills and knowledge to work competently as veterinary technicians, including anatomy, microbiology, clinical technicians, pharmacology, anesthesiology, surgical, medical nursing, radiology, and clinical pathology training. Whereas it is extremely important that each veterinary technician maintains certification, registration, and licensure through the successful completion of a national and/or state examination, practice lifelong learning through continuation education, and uphold high ethical standards. Whereas veterinary technicians will be joining their colleagues across the country to urge all to become aware of the important contribution of veterinary technicians to the health care and well-being of all animals. Now, therefore, I, Kenny O'Brien, Mayor of the Borough of Saraville, do hereby proclaim the third week in October to be designated as National Veterinary Technician Week in the Borough of Saraville.
Is there a motion?
Move the proclamation be approved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, with that, we have a special guest tonight, a young Saraville resident. He's so young, he still does homework, but he is going to be one of our future leaders. So I'm going to ask that Diego and his fellow scouts and his scoutmasters come up to the podium. And I'm going to ask the governing body to come to the rail. All right, fellas, so you're going to be on TV tonight. So I want you to face the camera and face the audience. All right. Now, this is Diego. This is Diego, and Jim Panay gave me a call about a week ago and said, Mayor, you got to get down here to the park on Jackson Avenue. We have a fine young man here. So I went down with Councilman Lembo, and I'm going to let our Eagle Scout. You're not an Eagle yet. You're working towards it. All right, here you go.
Thank you. All I have to say is thank you to my fellow scouts, family, friends for all coming out and supporting me. I really appreciate it. And I also want to give thanks to each and every one of you for inviting me here, and I really appreciate it.
All right, it's appropriate you introduce your Scoutmasters.
My Scoutmasters are Brian McCabe and Brant Wright and Barry Carr.
Without whom you wouldn't be standing here.
Without whom I wouldn't be standing here.
All right, so it's an honor, and we're going to present you with a certificate of recognition. It really helps the borough a great deal when you take these projects on. The cost for the borough to paint, what was the total count?
20.
20. Do you do that at home for your mother? You don't? All right. When you get the eagle, that means you got to do it for your mother. You got to take care of it. All right, so on behalf of a very grateful borough, so you hold that in one hand, you shake in the other, and maybe somebody will take a picture? The Scouts of Sayreville, we're honored that you're here, and we're very happy that you chose to be Scouts. It's a great organization, and it will make you great future leaders. Your dad's taking your picture. Mom, come on up, get in the picture. Come in, come in.
Okay. No, okay. Oh, wait, come on, Auntie, turn around. There you go.
All right, Diego.
Congratulations, Diego. You've done an outstanding job. You, your troop, your leaders. We expect great things from you. Congratulations
Thank you
again.
so
Keep
much.
up the good work.
Of course.
Diego, real quick, I just want to thank you and congratulate you and wish you the best in your future with the Eagle Scout.
Thank you.
Diego, congratulations, community service and leadership. It's the beginning of a great future for you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All I can say is with these young men up here, the future's looking bright.
Congratulations, Diego, and keep up all the good work with the entire group. Well done.
Congratulations, Diego and team, and you're a great public speaker. You spoke right into the mic, and you're going to be on TV tomorrow. Good job.
All right, fellas, job well done. Jim Panay, thanks for making that call to me.
Anytime, Mayor.
All right, fellas, I think if you had homework, or unless you're going for a merit badge, what that means is you don't have to stay if you don't want. What that means is we're going to go into a very exciting part of the meeting where we're going to go in an executive session where we're not going to speak to you. So that should be a whole new round of applause for that one. Go ahead, Counselor.
Yes, whereas Section 8 of the Open Public Meetings Act permits the exclusion of the public from meeting in certain circumstances, whereas this public body is of the opinion that such circumstances presently exist, now there be resolved by the mayor and council of the Borough of Sayreville. The public portion of this meeting is hereby adjourned in order that the governing body may meet in closed private session for approximately 20 minutes to discuss personnel, COA litigation, and possible rent leveling board litigation following the conclusion of said closed session. The governing body shall reconvene the open portion of this public meeting to consider any other matters which may be properly brought before at the time. The nature and content of the discussion which occurs in closed session shall be made public at such time as the need for non-disclosure no longer exists. The resolution shall take effect immediately.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Fellas, if everybody could just wait the 20 minutes that we got to use to complete this bit of business, we'll be an optimist about it. Thanks, everyone. We're going to 308? 310.
Here's
This is like, is there a fence? I don't even know if there's a fence. This is the bottom. This is the full thing, something happened.
If there is contamination, it probably was in the 60s. But it was, the railroad was never actually on it. But it was never actually railroad property.
Yeah, but Edwards is wrong. Railroads are exempt. In 1970, the federal government exempted all railroads from any contamination. Oh, forever.
That's not our fault.
No, it's not.
He has to pay
It's
us,
not
and
capital.
then he can sue the US.
Right, but he's not going to get any money from Conrail.
But they're saying if there is contamination, it was like blow off from the trains. The trains were never actually on there, but, you know, things that the trains carry will blow off on
Or,
New
you don't know,
Jersey.
I mean,
Motion to go into open?
Make a
Motion to
motion to
go into
reconvene.
open?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye. Mayor, may I ask a favor of you? I know in the past we've made adjustments to our agenda here as far as what we do first. In the interest of our audience, which I'm glad is here, can we move our resolutions to be read in full?
Okay, before we do that, I'm going to open them to the public for questions or comments.
We have to read
Go ahead
them
and read
first.
them.
This is,
Going to read them first, Jim.
I know.
Are you going to ask the questions or comments on the resolutions to be read?
After
in
they're
full?
read.
Gotta be read
Okay,
first.
thank you.
First one is Resolution 2018-348, authorizing the execution of the addendum dated October 9, 2018, to the settlement agreement between the Borough of Saraville, K-Land Corp., whereas the Borough of Saraville and K-Land Corp., wish to revise the settlement agreement dated June 16, 2018, by executing the enclosed addendum dated October 9, 2018. Whereas the representative of the parties have negotiated an addendum in the form hereto for purposes of fulfilling the section of 3.12 of the settlement agreement to facilitate the purchase of the real property contemplated therein for the purposes of open space. Whereas the parties wish to enter into this form of addendum, and therefore be it resolved as following: the governing body of the Borough of Saraville do hereby authorize the mayor to execute the October 9, 2018 addendum in the form attached here too, or if the mayor declines to sign, then authorizing council president as an alternate. And the borough directs its Affordable Housing Council to seek approval of the agreement from the trial court if necessary. The next one is Resolution 2018, authorizing borough attorney to prepare the deed of transfer and execution of the deed between the Borough of Saraville,
349.
I'm sorry, 349, I'm sorry, and National Lead Industries pursuant to the settlement agreement between the Borough of Saraville and National Lead dated June 25, 2018. A resolution, whereas the Borough of Saraville entered into a settlement agreement with National Lead on June 25, 2018, to resolve National Lead's intervention into the Borough of Saraville's declaratory judgment action entitled in the matter of the application of the Borough of Saraville, County of Middlesex, docket number MID, or MLD, MID-L-4010-15, whereas pursuant to the section 4.9 of the settlement agreement, the borough agreed to deed the borough-owned property abutting the National Lead site to National Lead. Therefore, be it and hereby resolved as follows: the Borough Council authorizes the Borough Attorney, Michael DuPont, to prepare the deed of transfer for the subject property, and the Borough authorizes the execution of the deed of transfer upon completion. The next resolution is 2018-350, endorsing the amended Housing Element and Fair Share Plan adopted by the Planning Board on June 13, 2018. Whereas on July 6, 2015, the Borough of Saraville filed a declaratory judgment action with the Superior Court of New Jersey, in re NJAC 5:9-6 and 597 and 221 NJ1 2015, Mountain Laurel 4, entitled in the matter of the application of the Borough of Saraville, County of Middlesex, seeking, among other things, a judicial declaration that its housing element and fair share plan to be amended as necessary satisfies its fair share of the regional need for low and moderate income housing pursuant to the Mountain Laurel Doctrine. Whereas in connection with this lawsuit, the borough simultaneously sought and ultimately secured a protective order providing Saraville and its planning board immunity from all exclusionary zoning results, while the borough pursued approval of its housing element and fair share plan, which is still in full force and effect. Whereas an issue arose in a declaratory relief action concerning whether the borough ever authorized the execution of the agreement with the Fair Share Housing Center and K-Land, resulting in the borough filing a motion to acknowledge that there is no agreement and the borough was free to satisfy its Mountain Laurel obligations free from any limitations from the purported agreement. Whereas prior to the court ruling on the borough's motion, the borough engaged in litigation with the Fair Share Housing Center, K-Land, and National Lead. Whereas as a result of the negotiations, the borough entered into a settlement agreements with the Fair Share Housing and K-Land and National Lead, whereas at the assistance of K-Land and National Lead, the Saraville Planning Board also is named a party to these settlements. Whereas the Planning Board has adopted an amended housing element and fair share plan, affordable housing plan, incorporating and implementing the three settlements, and whereas the borough wishes to endorse said affordable housing. Now therefore be it resolved by the governing body of the Borough of Saraville and the County of Middlesex and State of New Jersey hereby endorses the amended housing element fair share plan adopted by the Planning Board on June 13, 2018. The final one is 2018-351, authorizing the execution of a developer fee assessment and allocation agreement between the Borough of Saraville, Saraville Seaport Associates, Urban Renewal LP, and the Saraville Economic Redevelopment Agency. Whereas the Borough of Saraville, Seaport Associates, Urban Renewal LP, and Saraville Economic and Redevelopment Agency wishes to amicably resolve a dispute regarding the utilization of trust fund dollars generated from development fees from the Waterfront Redevelopment Plan project currently referred to as Riverton. And whereas a representative of the parties have negotiated an agreement in the form attached hereto, and the parties wish to enter into this agreement. Now therefore be it, and it is hereby resolved as follows. The Borough Council authorizes Council President Kilpatrick or the Borough Administrator Dan Frankel to execute the settlement agreement in the form attached hereto, and the Borough directs its Affordable Housing Council to seek approval of the agreement from the trial court in the event the court approval is necessary. Now, Mr.
Okay, at this time, I'm going to open the public portion for questions or comments on these four resolutions. Are there questions or comments? There is a 5-minute limit. Jim?
Thank you, Mayor. Jim Robinson, 11 Burrell Square. I have a question about 2018-348. It talks about an October 9th addendum. Mr. DuPont or Mr. Serenian or somebody, can you tell us about that October 19th addendum?
Mr. Serenian or Mr. Edwards?
Which document are we talking?
That's the K-Land.
So in essence,
Give him a mic.
Thank you. So the K-Land addendum pretty much says that, they make representations that there are no known contaminants on the site. They also, the addendum permits the borough to reserve its right to sue them in a chain of title if and when contaminants are eventually, if they're ever found on the site.
Okay. All right, and that comports with the conversations that I had with Mr. Kaplan as well. And Mayor, so that everybody here knows, this concerns the 4.1 acres that is currently zoned prime, that is on North Ernston Road. Back in the 1990s, when Mayor McCormick was the mayor and I was chairman of the planning board, we zoned the property around Kennedy Park prime so that homes could not be built there. And that was an attempt to preserve some of the largest treed area in the borough. And Mayor McCormick's dream at that time was that the 40 acres surrounding the park could at one time be purchased by the borough and be made a part of the park. Back then there was no, and I said 40 acres, not the 4 that we're talking about, 40 acres he wanted. But back then there was no open space fund, there was no money to do anything like that. Now years later, now we have an open space fund. That open space fund contains about $6 million, as far as I know, or maybe more. $7 million, okay, it grows every year. And buying property so that it can become parkland, not high-density apartments, is exactly why this fund was created. 2 years ago, when we all found out about the COA matter, I came to the council and suggested that buying that 4.1 acres that is zoned prime would be an appropriate thing for the borough to do. At the same time, at the court hearings in New Brunswick, I spoke to Mr. Hoff, who was the attorney for Mr. Kaplan, and I asked him if he would consider it. Mr. Hoff said he didn't think so, but he would take it back to Mr. Kaplan. You know, when I was the planning board chairman, Mr. Kaplan and I sued one another any number of times, so I wasn't certain whether or not he would do that, but to my surprise, he said yes, he would certainly consider that. And negotiations began. Many folks, a lot of them are here tonight, spoke in favor of this. The council was very receptive to this, or at least a number of you were, and you asked for appraisals, and we're at this point now, and it is now part of the COA settlement. I've spoken many times about the COA agreement and the traffic and the quality of life and the taxes and this impact on the schools and so forth. I'm not going to get into that. A few meetings ago, I brought aerial photos of this property, and they were photos that dated back to the 1930s. And I showed you that property is pretty pristine. We all saw the Phase 1 report that there were some areas of concern. I don't think they're substantial, and I think Mr. Kaplan has agreed to assume responsibility for that. This parcel, and in fact Kennedy Park, are the geographic center of the town. And so if we have an opportunity here to buy this property and make it parkland, and at the same time eliminate the construction of high-density apartments there, I think that is something that we should favorably consider. We have the funds to do it. We certainly have the will of the folks who are here. A number of my neighbors are here tonight and have been here over the last 2 years to ask for this, and I would ask that the council look favorably on that and pass this resolution. Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Are there any other questions? Ruth Ann?
Good evening, Ruth Ann Mahoney, 2 Gerard Place, Parlin. Just want to say I'm here, of course, in favor of the 4.1 acre that we buy that. Also representing not only my neighbors, but other people of Sayreville who I've spoken to. They are most in favor of this purchase, as it will make the park and Sayreville a better place to be. So that is why I'm here this evening, is please seriously consider this purchase. Thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments? Being no other questions or comments, I'll entertain a motion.
Second.
Roll call?
Councilpersons Novak,
Yes.
Buchanan,
Yes.
Grillo?
Yes.
Kilpatrick?
Yes.
Lembo? Melendez?
Yes.
Okay, fellas, thanks for coming out tonight. All right.
We need another motion.
That was a motion just
Oh,
to
that was
close
a
the
motion to
public
close,
portion.
motion to,
Don't we have to vote on each one separately, Terry?
Should be done separately.
Okay. I move that, well, you want to
go ahead.
I move resolution 218-348 be approved on roll call vote.
Second.
Roll call?
Councilpersons Novak?
Yes.
Buchanan?
Yes.
Grillo?
Yes.
Kilpatrick?
Yes.
Lembo?
Yes.
Melendez?
Yes.
Next.
2018349, is there a motion?
349, I
I
make
make
a
a
motion.
motion that resolution 2018-349 be approved on roll call vote.
Second.
Roll call?
Councilpersons Kilpatrick?
Yes.
Buchanan?
Yes.
Grillo?
Yes.
Lembo?
Yes.
Melendez?
Yes.
Novak?
Yes.
2018350, is there a motion?
I make a motion to approve on roll call vote.
Second.
Roll call?
Councilpersons Kilpatrick?
Yes.
Buchanan?
Yes.
Grillo?
Yes.
Lembo?
Yes.
Melendez?
Yes.
Novak?
Yes.
2018351, is there a motion?
I make a motion that the resolution be approved on roll call vote.
Second.
Roll call?
Councilpersons Kilpatrick?
Yes.
Buchanan?
Yes.
Grillo?
Yes.
Lembo?
Yes.
Melendez?
Yes.
Novak?
Yes.
Okay, now, fellas, thank you very much. Thanks for coming out, reporting it. Yeah, no, we got to go back now.
Do I have a second to run to the bathroom now? Vicky to sign as the sponsor.
Make it sound like they're putting a freeway off. They make it sound like they're. Eric, back to number 5, all business, please.
Yes, Mayor, and old business, we have the public hearing on the following ordinance. Ordinance number 431-18, an ordinance fixing the salaries of certain borough officials, officers, and employees for the years 2014, 15, and 16.
This time, I'm going to open the public portion for questions or comments on this ordinance. Are there any questions or comments? Being no questions or comments, I'll entertain a motion. Councilwoman Novak.
Second.
Roll call?
Councilpersons Novak? Yes. Buchanan?
Yes.
Grillo?
Yes.
Kilpatrick? Lembo?
Yes.
Melendez?
Yes.
Okay,
Consent agenda resolutions?
what's that? No, there was an opening, geez, who just resigned from Recreation?
Helen Requillian.
Okay, Helen Requoya, just after 10 years, she has other things to do in her life. We thank her for her service. So for the next 30 days, if anyone interested in serving on the recreation, please go to our website, download an application, and forward it to the clerk.
There's 2 vacancies according to Terry.
Who's the second?
That I don't know. There's just 2 vacancies in the rec. Terry wrote that on top of here. So we could appoint this one person and everybody else.
I read it, and she seems like a very nice young lady. She's the one that works for the Prudential Center,
Okay.
right? Okay.
Yes.
So she just got here to Sayreville, but that doesn't matter because some of the best volunteers are our newest residents. But because we have a tendency to have a vacancy and fill it immediately,
But
I
we've
would
had
like,
one all year, Mayor. We've had one vacancy all year.
Mary,
Correct?
then it is the council decision. Then
We've
you
had 2 all year and then Helen on top of that?
fill it up, Mary.
Oh,
Make
Mayor,
make the recommendation.
Well, the recommendation came from Jerry
vacancies
Us.
are there right now?
we've had 2 all year long.
Make the recommendation,
Helen
I'm
is the
telling you.
third.
Make the recommendation. You have the-
Ricky, you're
you have the
council
young
president,
lady's
do it.
application.
Oh, Ricky, it's you. It's your
So I'd like
department.
to appoint Kristen Johnson to the Recreation Advisory Board.
Read her name out loud.
I'd like to appoint Kristen Johnson to the Recreation Advisory Board.
Second.
Roll call?
Councilpersons Melendez,
Yes.
Buchanan,
Yes.
Grillo,
Yes.
Kilpatrick,
Yes.
Lembo,
Yes.
Novak.
Yes.
Okay, so that still leaves one opening on the recreation. Leaves two openings on the recreation. Okay. That being said, we'll go to the consent agenda, and I'll open it to the public for any questions or comments on consent agenda items. Are there any questions or comments? No? Okay. Being no questions or comments, I'll entertain a motion.
Thank you, Mayor. I move the public hearing be closed and the consent agenda resolutions be approved on roll call vote.
Roll call?
Councilpersons Kilpatrick,
Yes.
Buchanan,
Yes.
Grillo,
Yes.
Lembo, Melendez,
Yes.
Novak.
Yes.
Okay, CFO's report, Denise?
No report, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Borough Engineers report? Okay, Borough Attorney's report?
No report, Mayor.
Okay, I'm going to open the public portion for questions or comments on all matters. Ken, this is the time you'd come up. Ken, you need to state your name and your street.
Absolutely will. My name is Ken Kurcheski. I live at 17 Pershing Avenue.
Pull the, no, don't do
No,
that.
don't pull it.
No, all right.
Talking to the side.
Then you're going to need
From the
to,
side?
The front side, any side,
From
yeah.
that side?
That's perfect.
That sound
Can we
good.
hear, okay.
That
you
is
just did.
Yeah, new mic.
the brand new one.
I'm here on behalf of my father. He's resided, and my mother, at 17 Pershing Avenue.
Ken, you got a deeper voice.
Deeper voice. All right, they've resided at 17 Pershing Avenue for 81 years of their life. They've resided, I'm sorry, for 60 years total on that street. Me, I have been there 51 years, in and out. But I woke up Wednesday morning to find out that there were no parking signs placed in front of my parents' house. So basically, I'm just giving you a quick timeline as to what had happened and what's transpired since Wednesday. Thursday, I requested this to be reopened after I called the mayor regarding this matter. Friday morning, I had asked the signs be removed or covered, something before council could hear what my complaints were, and that we were not notified at all. None of the residents on Pershing Avenue had any knowledge of this. This was just something we woke up to Wednesday morning. My father is a retired police officer with the Borough of Sayreville. He's handicapped. He has handicapped shield on his thing. He cannot pull in and out of a driveway. I just want to basically say that the street's always been accessible. There's never been anything where I have not seen a garbage truck, an emergency vehicle in all my years on the street itself. As far as capital improvements, nothing has ever been done to Pershing Avenue as far as new curbs.
Okay, and I did check with Jay at the beginning of the meeting. Jay, a quick synopsis for this resident about his street.
We have two projects in the Hercules Village area. The first is going to be water and sanitary sewer improvements, which is probably going to start sometime this month. And then next spring, the roads are going to be reconstructed.
Very good. Hi, Jay, how are you?
With curbs.
The curbing,
With,
correct.
with curbs, correct?
No sidewalks.
No
Like I told you,
and
we
I
put
understood that.
sidewalks in, you'll
I
lose all your
understood that.
yard.
You know, I did measure the street. I spent time with Dave Samuels, with Jay Cornell as well. 4 years, I have a degree in landscape architecture from Rutgers. But I'm really versed in that street itself as to the daily comings and goings of the people on it and the community. I was just livid that I had no knowledge of this. I was just something we woke up to, and a way of life my parents have always enjoyed, to just find that they can't park their vehicle out in front of their home any longer. It makes a burden on me. My mother has dementia and Alzheimer's. The car parking in the zigzag pattern slows people down. I'm stressing that the way this is set up with a straight run down Pershing Avenue is only going to increase the speed. My concern is for people on that street who are new to the neighborhood that do have children. They have signs put out there that say, you know, slow, children at play. It has always been rather, you know, 15 miles an hour, if not less, because people see the signs, they, you know, and they take their time, and people out of respect know where to park their vehicles. At any given time, there may be 4 or 5 vehicles dispersed within that street. Every home has its own driveway. Some of them have 2. My father at that time, had this ever been an issue, we would have put a 2-car garage, driveway in, knowing something like that. But he's always been a 1-car driveway. All the streets, everybody has been dispersed. It's never been an issue, never in all these years. And I'm asking, one, to have the signs covered or removed. It's really on behalf of my father. Since this has happened, several police have been to the house. On 2 occasions, when it first came and I'd asked to have it covered or pulled down, they came. I was not present. My father had to go outside of his house with his cane. He's, you know, going to a car, and my neighbor came out and interjected with the police officer. They let the car stay there. This was not supposed to be enforced. It was told to the several police department that they would not enforce this. However, people are still calling. Just on Monday, it was raining. It was 3 o'clock. I luckily had came home to find my father in the rain, on wet, with a cane, walking to his car with a police officer. Forced me to call Mayor Kennedy O'Brien. It just really got to me that, again, this is just not right, you know, especially for him to be, you know, dragged out of his house with a safety risk and his health at issue. My other thing, again, is I was stressing to have my father's vehicle parked in front of our home because my driveway is right on Pershing Avenue. If my mother, with her dementia or something, is out and not under supervision, and she steps out onto Pershing Avenue, she's going to get hit by a car, and she's going to lead. It's going to lead to death or something or an injury. I don't want to see it happen. My next thing is my father. It makes his life easier to just get into his car and run. If he has to go to get milk or he has to do something I can't provide for him, or he has to do something when I'm not there to take my mother somewhere, any emergency comes up, he has access to just get in his car and go straight around that neighborhood. Now, the neighborhood itself, again, it's been there, and I understand that there, you know, we're you know, hopefully going for some capital improvements to it, which I see, you know, would help. But I really stress that we leave it up to the neighbors and the residents of Pershing Avenue to make their own decision. My next thing, as far as Pershing Avenue goes, on my father's side of the street, there is 1, 2, 3, I would say only 3 houses that are affected on the no parking side. Of those houses, everyone has just perished or moved out. So the houses are vacant, so there's no other voice here to complain that my side of the street is, now a one-way, a no parking. It also leads to us and me, if I have to move vehicles around or someone parking in front of a neighbor's house. My father always had that security of looking out his window and knowing his vehicle was there and that it was safe. I myself, we share the driveway. It's just always been a thing in that neighborhood. Every single house on that street is the same situation. They all have their driveways. They'll park their cars in it. They'll leave one car out on the street if they don't have a two-car driveway. But when there's a snow issue, everyone seems to somehow get all their cars and their vehicles off the street, which, again, it's just common knowledge and common courtesy within a community. If there's something where someone's vehicle is out there, most people will address it with other neighbors. It's a very close-knit community. Again, I've lived there all my life, in and out. And I've presently been there for the last 3.5 years. My father needed my help. He just had gone through radiation treatment for prostate cancer. He came out, now he's trying to get his knees worked on and getting cortisone shots. My mother's a handful, and I am there just as, it's just tough. And I know how crazy it is for him, and to be stressed out over this is just, I'm here trying to defend my father, who's given his life to Cerebral.
You and your family are residents of Cerebral. You don't have to defend them. But as you and I spoke, there were two things I was looking to accomplish. The first thing was to change our process when anything is done to a residential street, because every time we do this to a residential street, apparently enough time has elapsed since the last time we did something like this to a residential street, and we upset all the residents of the street. So going forward, I would like it as part of the process that the residents of the street under discussion be notified by Borough Hall that their street is under discussion for the following reasons. Are there any objections to that change of process? No. Second thing is, I said that we would form a committee to meet with the residents of Pershing so that you would have input on that. So I would ask that Pat Lembo with Planning and Zoning, Dan Buchanan with Public Safety, and I'm going to ask you, Steve, because you have the background in Planning and Zoning also. And we'll get together, we'll bring the police in. Jay Cornell.
Wait. The police were brought in.
I get it.
It was the police recommendation. I want to ask the legal part of this.
Well, this is the...
Excuse me, Mayor. Excuse me.
Go ahead, Mary. Go ahead.
This has happened once before since I've been here, and we made one side of the street parking on North Minisink. And the residents came in, and we were told in no uncertain terms back then, we would put the town in severe legal danger if we just said, well, we're going against the police department's representation that this is a danger and this must be done, and then we can be sued.
Well, one of the
We've already brought the police into
Mary,
this.
well, I'll wait for you to finish. Go ahead.
No, I'm just saying, we already did bring the
So
police in.
this is the issue that I have. When you drive down that Washington Road corridor, meaning both sides of the street, it's the older sections of town, and some of the roads are very narrow.
Well, that's
Now, this appears to me to have been the result, and I did check, and they said they had a complaint, and that's what led to all this. So we have a single street amongst many streets on that Washington Road corridor, which seems to have been singled out. Now, I don't want to get into why that one street was singled out for one side of the street parking, but I would like the residents to come and to participate in the process.
Well, they can come and
Nothing has
participate in the
changed
process.
until we
but
have this meeting.
This street has already been deemed unsafe. Mayor, Mike, the police department has deemed this unsafe.
Okay, I'm glad that your opinion's on the record, Mary.
I'm asking Mike what the legal opinion is of our responsibility here.
Well, you have a recommendation by the police department indicating that it is unsafe. If someone were to be injured for whatever reason, whatever cause, I would probably be safe assured, out of abundance of caution, that the attorney would file a torts claim notice against the borough saying that, you knew this, the police department recommended, and you did X, Y, and Z. You probably would get a torts claim notice on this.
I mean, when I used to drive an ambulance, matter of fact, I was involved in a case where we hit one of the parked cars trying to get our ambulance down. Now, it was not Foch or Pershing, whatever it was over on Quaid, where parking was allowed on both sides of the street. It does make all of these vehicles, whether they be fire or first aid, are much wider than they used to be. And I took out the side of a car because they were parked on both sides of the street, and it made it impossible. For me to get to a person that was in cardiac arrest, I had to hit the car. And I knew I was going to do it.
But this could happen at any time of the day.
Absolutely.
It could be anywhere, though. It doesn't have to anything to do with parking. Driving
it's
an
my
ambulance.
understanding
My
that-
understanding is if you were on Washington Road and somebody parked their vehicle on the side of the road and had their flashers on, and somebody decided to park opposite with an 18-wheeler, and that ambulance couldn't get through or tried to squeeze and hit the car, it's the same situation. The fact that no parking is on that street has no bearing as to emergency vehicles getting down. A garbage truck can get down that street without any issue in the borough. It has not had... In 60 years, on that street, there has not been an issue with a dump truck, a garbage truck, that said a fire truck. There is side streets. This is only 100 feet till you have a terminus to go around. And I understand that an emergency vehicle takes precedence. My father was a police officer in this town. But my main concern right now is that this was not open for discussion. This was not put forth. The police department did not come and ask, are there handicapped people on this street? What is the situation with the street? No, they just made a basic decision on one person's basis. And I understand that, but my thing right now is I've never seen an issue with an ambulance or a fire truck or an emergency vehicle trying to get down that street in all the years I've been there. All the years I've been there, and all the years my father's been on the street.
Mayor, before we make any decisions on anything, can I ask Kevin Krasinski, who had a lot to do with this? I understand he has taken pictures and stuff.
Before we do the cross-examination here, Mary, I've asked 3 council people to form a committee to listen to the residents. So let's have them listen to the residents, and
Thank you,
Kevin
Mayor.
can come as a professional.
He
How's
can.
that, Kevin?
I would like Kevin to speak now, though.
I would
and
like
let
to
the
also-
council-
About what? They
Leave a
haven't even
copy of
had
this.
their first meeting.
Yes, I would like him to explain why the recommendation was
Because he
made.
got a complaint.
Yeah, but I'd like his basis for
And me.
saying, yes, there's a problem.
Kevin, I'm not cutting you short, buddy, but
I am asking that Kevin speak.
Oh,
This is
for
the
God's
public
sakes.
portion. He can
Mary.
speak.
when you help a friend, you help a friend. Come on
No,
up,
Mayor,
Kevin.
I'm not helping any friend.
Wait. There's got to be a point of
No,
order.
I'm so sick and tired
This
of
has
you.
to be point
Come
of
on up.
order.
When Ken is done, Kevin, come on
I
up.
don't want it to, let's not let this devolve. I mean, we have a resident here who spoke his piece, and I hear what he's saying. I would like, we got to remember here, we brought this up here. This was voted on. Mayor, you signed
That's right.
off on this.
You signed
I
it.
got it. And that's
So-
exactly what I told Ken.
Can
I
I
said,
just-
we messed this one up.
Okay,
because
but Mayor,
we didn't ask the residents for their input.
Mayor, normally you're the first one to call up our professionals to speak. I would like to hear from our emergency, from our fire.
We'll have our first meeting here, Ken, with one resident present, okay?
Okay, very good.
Thank you. I'm glad you came up.
Thank you. I mean, I'm sure I have more stuff to say, and I would like to say
Yeah.
more.
Okay.
Yeah, but I'll listen to our
Thanks, Ken.
professional here.
Kevin, come on up.
Good evening. After receiving a complaint, I'm sorry, Kevin Krasinski, Fire Marshal and Assistant Fire Chief, Borough of Saraville. After receiving a complaint about the labyrinth, the way the vehicles were parked on Pershing, basically it was threading a needle through the maze of the way the vehicles were parked. A 7-foot parking lane, the vehicle is average width of, I believe, could be 6.5 feet based upon the vehicle that your dad is driving.
6.5 feet.
Correct.
The street is actually 23 feet wide.
The report I have shows it's less than 22 feet. So if you use 14 feet as your parking lane and the fire truck is 8 feet, I'm at 22 feet.
All right, fellas, I'm not getting into this here.
I want,
I should have put a tape measure.
Wait.
Ken,
Have-
not here for
Ken,
argument.
Let our
let-
professionals
let's-
speak.
He's gotta
this is a
address
silly
us.
thing, but
So-
go ahead, Kevin.
The outriggers on a ladder truck extend the vehicle to 18 feet. So if the vehicle is parked there, I'm either gonna crush the vehicle, or I'm not gonna be able to put the fire out. So that was the basis on why I recommended one
Okay.
side of the street for parking.
Okay.
And non-parking. They chose the side of the street with only 3 houses, because that was the least amount of impact, which is smart thinking by our Traffic Safety Bureau. So that is how we arrived at that.
Kevin, I've always looked at you as one of the assets of the borough. So I'm not disagreeing, and I thank you for your report.
Any other questions?
Okay.
I have a question, and I don't really think it's for you, Kevin, now that you put your report. We have a professional coming up and telling us that, in his professional opinion, this is an issue.
There's gonna be a problem. I'm not gonna be able to put a fire out. I'm not gonna be able to get to
Wait a
somebody.
minute, we haven't
Now that-
even had the residents' meeting.
Wait,
They just
wait.
want to be heard.
Hold on,
They want to
Mayor.
have
This is the
input.
public portion.
I'm just trying
Let
to
him
explain it.
speak.
Going through that street, it is narrow, and the way the cars are parked, you have to zigzag to drive the truck. The smallest truck is about 32 feet in length, and the largest is about 41 and a half feet. So to try and snake that through the way the vehicles are parked, and I went through last night, it would be very difficult to get large apparatus in there on those tight, narrow streets. The largest, the turning radius that we need on the largest vehicle is 32 feet. Those things don't stop on a dime, they're not easy to steer, the wheels are behind you.
Kevin, we have issues like this throughout town,
Correct, and this
all
is
right?
probably the first
So,
of many more. that need to be
Lemire, you
addressed.
have these issues where you can't get a ladder truck in there because you can't make the cul-de-sacs. I understand that. All I'm saying is I'm accommodating the residents of a street who would like to be heard and like to have input. And all of a sudden, I got this wall up, and it's like, wait a minute, they haven't even had a meeting yet.
May I?
They haven't even been heard.
May I ask a question now that we've heard from our professional? Let me ask of our council here. In the event that there is, God forbid, a fire on that particular street, and we change now the way that this parking signs are, does this leave us at any liability now that we've had articulated at a microphone that our fire marshal feels that this is a dangerous situation for the trucks? Do we have now a potential issue?
There's a potential issue that is enhanced because now you have 2 professional entities prescribing that, there's a reason behind the street parking. If in fact there is a fire, you're probably looking at another torts claim notice because of your professionals announcing an opinion as to the heightened risk.
That's part of my concern now. Now, to go back to what you said, Mayor, maybe there's a way to kind of reach some type of a compromise here. We have one side of the road that is currently restricted with no parking, the other side there is parking. I agree that I think it was smart planning to try and impact the least amount of residents. Perhaps I think we would all probably agree at this point now, having heard from both of our professionals here, we don't want to have a potential litigation, loss of life, or God forbid, something else. Maybe the community discussion on this particular street is what side of the street we should make no parking. But I would say that you would have to come up here when it's time.
I'd like to just ask if the council president is done.
No, I
don't want to interrupt.
absolutely, yes.
So I have a technical question. I suppose, Kevin, you're the right person to ask. What if Mr. Krzyzewski Sr. had, and I assume he does not have a handicap placard? He does. But this isn't a handicapped parking space. So, and again, I certainly don't know the ordinances on this, I suppose. But if there were a handicapped parking space, Kevin, and there was a handicapped parking space sign, and he parked in front of the property as his son would like, what would you have done if there was a legal handicapped parking space?
We would have had to have issued it, and it would have had to have come as a
The
recommendation.
question was asked of Kevin.
But I think
You like
That was
Kevin.
referred to traffic safety then.
Traffic safety was asked on this, and they said that they never request an issue
Kevin.
of handicap parking spaces when a resident has a driveway. We have never done it.
And Ken's argument is that his father cannot use the driveway because of a physical impairment or visual impairment or some reason that he cannot go out of the driveway, is your contention.
It is my contention. He has to, with his hips.
Why don't you just come up for a second? 'Cause I'm just trying to ask a technical question if we're going to have a committee on this, and we have Kevin
Well,
in the room
my
here.
concern with my father is he has bad hips. For him to get into a vehicle, blindly back up out of his driveway and try to turn around and look, it's not feasible anymore. It's a struggle. He's 81 years old. It's not a question of his ability to drive. It's his ability to maneuver in and out of a driveway. So therefore, he parks it on the street so he can proceed and go around the neighborhood. My next question to him would be, there is a side street of Foch Street. Total dead end. It's even narrower than my street. Why is there not an issue there, and why did you not bring that up? Why are you just singling out my street of Pershing Avenue with a width and an overall spread of a fire truck and crushing a vehicle? If there's a fire and there's fire trucks and there's sirens, people are gonna move their vehicles. They're gonna do anything in their power to move the vehicle, or the fire truck's gonna push the vehicle out of the way.
So that's my hypothetical question to Mr. Krasinski, which is, let's say there were a legal handicap parking space at the site we're talking about. What would you have done to get a fire truck in and out?
Put it on the other, put this.
You would have asked for no parking on the other side of the street?
Yeah.
Would have asked
Yeah.
for that and referred it to traffic safety also to review it, as we typically do when we're looking for parking restrictions.
Okay, I'm just curious, because
And Foch was never brought up.
evidently we're
because
getting
I
into
never
this, so.
received a complaint about Foch. And for a dead-end street, we would back it down
So
the
it's
street.
based on a complaint? Okay.
And that's how this
And where was
originated,
the
sir.
complaint originated from?
From our Public Works Department that came to me and said they had a problem getting their
There
trucks
you go.
down the street.
Okay, I understand.
Okay, so before we get, okay, I want to remedy this situation for, and it's a safety issue for anybody on that block.
It is a total safety
Absolutely.
And my concern, believe me, if there was a fire and there was a health or a safety risk, my main concern on that street would be to save a life and to be there and see the firemen and first aid respond. My main concern is though the speed on that street. You giving a straight run on that street. Now, your so-called complaint would be that issue. Coming from Bailey Place, having a straight run to Washington Road increases the speed on that street and coming the other direction. The people on Pershing Avenue, it is a very slow, very quiet neighborhood. We all look out for one another. That is my concern. And that's why I'm here to stress. I wouldn't mind if you open the front of Pershing Avenue, which goes 150 feet, and have one side parking, and you went to my parents' side, which was 150 feet, and had parking on that side, and then go to the other side of the street. You know, you're still maintaining that, but you're keeping that pattern.
I'm not
that
in,
goes.
I hear I'm not in the business of safety, traffic safety, so I leave that to whether they feel it's an appropriate thing. I can argue that there's some positives and negatives to the zigzag. As a person with small children, I know the risk of having cars parked on the street. If a ball goes and there's a small child, a car coming down can't see that kid, and then you have because when I was a child on my street growing up in Laurel Park, that's exactly what happened, but with an ice cream truck. And people that have lived here a long time ago know that that kid came out, they didn't see it, and her body was, her final resting place was on my neighbor's yard. So we can, but that's why we have professionals and police officers and traffic safety. What my idea here, and I wasn't selected to be on the community committee, however, we've acknowledged now, and we do have potential litigation safety, and I don't want to put the borough at risk. At the same time, I'm cognizant of your father's problems and needs, and because you're saying that that particular community is so close-knit, maybe in the discussions, the conversation isn't this zigzag, it's maybe the other side of the road, if the individuals over there are so gracious and are so caring, which I believe they are, we are in Sayreville, maybe it changes where it's the other side of the road that becomes the no parking. I think that having driven that road myself and having seen pictures of what it's like and listening to our professional, clearly, both sides of the road parking, we know is an issue. It's a danger. It needs to be addressed. It can't continue, even though it has for a long time. So the mayor, your idea of putting a committee together is fine. Let's make it happen. Moving forward, though, I have concerns about changing it back to the way that it was.
Nobody said that, Vicky.
So
I said,
right now,
let's let the residents have
I agree with
input
that,
into
Mayor.
the process. We got half of it done tonight. We're changing our process. When we do anything with the streets, the residents on the streets will be notified so that their
Can we ask
input
for, the
can be
police-
heard.
before
So
we change
let
process,
the guys on the committee take care of this.
Time out, though, time out. The guys on the committee, I think it's wonderful to bring the community in to have a discussion about this particular street. Before we turn around and talk about changing process or policy in reference to this,
Wow.
that's something I would like to get input from our traffic safety department. And from our fire department and from those individuals.
What are you proposing?
Well, I think that your committee for this community in this particular area is a great idea. Bring those residents together because we have an immediate issue that I think we can resolve. But I think before we change policy and process and how we do this moving forward, because we have legal opinion that that's a problem, why don't
Did we
we
say
ask
we're
our...
changing anything? I
I
said we're
think you
meeting
just
to
said that.
discuss it.
You just did. You just
My
did.
next question is, why were we in such a hurry to do this when the street was supposed to see capital improvements as far as curbing and sidewalks? They could widen the street.
I think we acted on the recommendation of our safety, the traffic safety. I think that's how that happened.
And I think it was premature, and I think that someone should have notified the residents that this was gonna be an issue, because again, you are doing something prior. You know, once you put curbing in, that street can easily be 23, if not 25 feet wide.
I think this was something that, because it came from traffic safety, I don't
I
typically
understand.
change that.
I'm sorry to be
Yeah.
directing everything to you.
That's
I'm just
okay.
trying
I'm all right with
to
it.
say, though, that this street itself, again,
Yeah.
it is uniform.
Yeah, we
It's
can't just make-
existed for, you know, my parents, 60 years on that street. And I don't see it being an issue as far as what we're saying as far as health and safety. I feel, though, again, that
Take the property.
I really strongly feel that this is going to be more of a liability, that someone's going to get killed on that street by leaving it a straight run with the no parking on
All
the
right,
side.
so Ken, you'll meet with the committee, get your neighbors. All right, it'll be set up to accommodate you. And Kevin, if you can make yourself available, appreciate it. And again, we're all neighbors, we're all residents, we're just interacting, and we're trying to find solutions.
Mayor, may I also suggest that somebody from traffic safety go to this meeting too, so they explain their process from the time they get a request to look at it? Because we've had ones where we have denied it. But as far as, that street is only 22 feet wide. We can't make the street 25
Mary,
unless we
all I'm
condemn
saying
property.
is, a lot of the streets on the Washington Road corridor would probably fall in this criteria. And when I went down
doing
to
it
meet
everywhere.
with Ken, I said, this looks like, this is like a street that got singled out. So to alleviate that perception that it was done as a standalone of streets, let's start this process so that, you know, that perception is addressed. And the residents feel it was a special, not to degenerate or take away from what you do, Kevin. Okay, so
So we're gonna.
Thank you.
we're moving forward.
All right, so I'm leaving here tonight, but my main concern, again, is my father and his safety.
Okay.
And a way of, I do not wish to have the Central Police Department continually harassing him. That is my concern.
I don't think they will.
And I just want him to be able to do what he's done for 60 years on that street, to be able to have his vehicle out in front, visually see it, and visually be able to leave the neighborhood. And my mother, again, have the protection of that vehicle.
We'll work on that, Ken.
I really appreciate it.
All right, but what you need to do is get your contact information. Oh, you got it. Okay. Kev, thank you, buddy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well,
Phil Emma, Parlin section of Saraville. I just want some clarification about the marijuana committee. What is happening with that?
Mayor, I'll take that. We had a subcommittee meeting after we had our public meeting last, 2 weeks ago. There was a public meeting, we had some, I don't know if we had any residents come out and speak, but we had a lot of.
I don't think any.
Pro and con talking up here. I know it was a school night, and I know we were trying to work on another date to have another public meeting specifically for that. I'm not sure exactly where we were with that. But we did have a subcommittee meeting after it, and we were working on some ideas. The hardest thing that we have right now is the statute that's out there. We don't know what it is. We haven't seen it. I've asked the Assembly Speaker's office for it. It can't be released yet because they're still working on it, and that's why there has been no progress on it, as far as I know. We did speak to a gentleman from the Woodbridge Dispensary, just to get an idea what it looks like, and so that everyone up here can see what they look like. A little more information, but the guy never called us back.
At this point, Dan, I don't want to interrupt, but at this point, we're trying as a committee to assess the different variations that we may have to address, whether it's adult dispensaries, grow houses, bud bars, actual small, like a cigar bar type thing. We don't know exactly what the statute's going to allow. We also don't even know the level of THC that the statute's going to allow, and that is part of our discussions going back and forth. So I think over the last 3 weeks or so, myself and Councilman Buchanan and Lembo have been trying to assess just the different variations that we may have to address as a borough. And I think just basically build a matrix of what might come down the pike. But at this point, we don't have enough information to make a decision. I think the most responsible thing would be to have another public meeting, hopefully with a better turnout. But we're not planning on making any recommendations as a committee until we have at least another public meeting.
One of the things that we were looking at, that we didn't know, wasn't really popping out there is when we address this ordinance, we want to address everything. And one of which the committee really didn't think about at the time, but then popped up was, like Steve said, the bud bar. I don't know who's in favor of that. I don't think anyone is, but we want to make sure that everything's addressed in this ordinance, and that it's in line with the state statute.
I have reached out to that dispensary.
Pat, you need to speak in your mic.
I've reached out to that dispensary a few times. No one answers the phone. I've left a number of messages. No one's gotten back to me yet, but I will keep trying. The committee would like to get in there and see the facility so we can have a better knowledge of how.
And we're trying not to piecemeal an ordinance together. As I mentioned, there are so many different variations of what the borough may be approached with. There is a difference in many ways between a grow house and a dispensary. There's a difference between a medical dispensary and an adult use dispensary. The legislation is not clear on some of those rules yet. And so we don't want to just introduce or propose an ordinance that only covers one aspect of the marijuana business. We want to make sure that we're covering all of our bases. So as a committee, we're trying to be very patient and just make sure that we have all the information and cover all the different options. So that's where we are.
It sounds like the committee is like you're actually entertaining bringing these businesses in. Who exactly is on the committee?
Me, Pat, and Steve.
You, Pat, and Steve. So the police chief's not a part of this?
This is the council committee. We have input from
So you're not
input from
expanding
anyone.
it other than just the council?
This is the committee that was set up by the mayor.
So the mission of the committee is to what? To entertain the different ways of bringing in these facilities, or this is the stall tactic to waiting for the final bill?
At all. We're just trying to gather information and see what exactly the proposal from the state is going to be. We don't really, from what we've seen, League of Municipalities says it looks like municipalities are going to have a period for an opt-out, like 180 days. But nothing is etched in stone. We don't know that
Why
yet.
do we have to wait for that? I don't understand. When I came before the committee, it was like 26 in June. There was like 26 towns that banned it. Now it's over 42. So why are all these towns getting it right, and we're just dragging our feet?
Well, that's less than 10% of the towns in New Jersey. So I don't know if it's all the towns.
It's not necessarily getting it right either. There's some towns out there that just passed a resolution that's really not worth anything. It's just a resolution that they're against it. Doesn't mean that somebody can come in and say that we're going to put something in here. They have to have proper zoning.
We need to make sure, because remember, what's happening at the state level can be very different than what happens at the municipal level. We use the argument, or I guess the test case of a medical dispensary, which apparently, from public meetings, nobody in this town seems to have a problem with. They're okay with a medical dispensary. That's all well and good, but we don't have any structure within our ordinances to determine where a medical dispensary would go. So we'd say, okay, fine. Philosophically, we don't believe that anybody's opposed to it, but you still need to have the appropriate zoning. You still need to make sure that it's not next to a school or a park, and so we need to start crafting these things. So it's not as simple as having an opinion of whether you're for adult recreational marijuana or not, because it's not just that. It's the manufacturing in the grow houses, it's the bud bars, it's the medical, it's the adult
Farming,
recreational.
warehousing, transportation, it's all that stuff.
Right, and so you're almost asking us to craft a zoning policy more than anything for an entire industry. And so we're trying to make sure that we get all of our information, but the problem is, we're kind of trying to solve a math problem, but we don't have all the numbers to add up. And so we're trying to figure out a lot of things, but the state law doesn't exist yet.
I don't understand why you still have to wait for the state law, and it's not, I'm asking for a ban. The police chief came here and asked for a ban. As a matter of fact, he's also the chairman of the legalization working group of New Jersey State Association of Police Chiefs. And he recommended an ordinance prohibiting recreational marijuana because of the way it will adversely affect our quality of life and public safety. So there was a time when the police chief's opinion had some weight. Does it still?
It has weight, but he asked for a resolution, and a resolution really does not, it doesn't hold the weight of a zoning
I heard
ordinance.
ordinance, not resolution.
Okay, we need a complete ordinance, and it's not something that you can just say, well, we don't want marijuana dispensaries in Sayreville.
Sure you can. Sure you can. You can prohibit farming, you can prohibit warehousing. Sure you could do that.
And we'd probably lose it in court. We're trying to do something that will be legally defensible, and because these other towns are doing it very, very haphazardly with no legal backing. I do not want this in my town, but I want an ordinance that's done correctly.
Anything could be challenged, though.
Yeah, but if it's done wrong, it's not just challenging it, it means losing it. I want something that they can challenge all they want and we're going to win.
I agree. Don't take this as we're in favor of recreational
No.
marijuana. I'm absolutely not. But by doing something, I don't want to rule out the medical marijuana aspect of it. I want to make sure we don't pass an ordinance that's going to do that. I don't want to see recreational marijuana, but I have no objection to the medical.
My frustration is that I think Vicky passed out the Old Bridge ordinance and asked for discussion. That didn't happen. I came before you in June. I think you asked Mike for some information. He said he was going to bring something for July and August. That didn't happen. So it was like 4 or 5 months. Nothing happened. I think I read something that the bill is 98% done. So it sounds like a stall tactic. It sounds like, you may be sympathetic to legalization.
No.
And it almost seems like that's, that sympathy is
Stalling
like
for
slowing
what
the process
exactly?
down to facilitate these businesses coming in.
If I might just jump in, I don't think there's been any sympathy announced for recreation. I think one of the things that the committee has done imprudently is to A, listen to the public, B, we have been hearing so many different variations of the bill that it's impossible to draft an ordinance that would survive a challenge. Also, we've received, the chairman of the committee, or the committee itself, has asked for input from Susan Gruhl, who was probably the most important person out of everyone concerning zoning. So, again, please don't think that in any way that it's a stall tactic or anything of this nature.
This should have happened 5 months ago.
Well, again,
I mean, this is on
see,
the verge of
thing,
passing now.
Well, the things that the thing I disagree with you is that the towns that haven't passed ordinances, they passed resolutions.
Old Bridge was an ordinance.
The towns that have passed the resolutions, they're just a resolution saying, hey, look, we don't agree with the town with bringing, whether it's medicinal or recreation. There are some towns that have passed an ordinance that is banning, recreational altogether. I don't know if those ordinances will be preempted by the state law. So, you know, you could certainly have an ordinance banning recreational, but I have to be honest with you, I don't know if it'd be preempted by the state law because I don't know what the state law says. So rather than creating paperwork that may not survive a challenge to the state law, why not do it right the first time? And I think that's what the committee's done. The committee has had extraordinary number of phone calls on. I know we had a meeting or a phone conference on a Friday night, you know, from 5 to 7 or 5 to whenever it was, took some time. So please do not in any way think that this committee is stalling.
Feels like it.
It may feel it, but
Can I jump in?
I'm just telling you on the record as to what the committee's been doing. It's been doing a lot.
May I just ask, what exactly are you asking for? Are you asking for nowhere in Sayreville, if marijuana is legal, you're asking for us to pass an ordinance to not allow marijuana use? Or are you asking for the dispensaries? Like,
Just
we're
because
mixing
the state legalizes it doesn't mean we have to zone for it.
zone for selling it or zone for
For
use?
businesses, farming,
But again, if I might,
I just want to be clear.
No, excuse me, Ricky. The problem with that, there's a case in Montclair that did the exact opposite. And they lost because there was a medicinal license available for that specific venue. And the town did exactly what you said. And it went up on appeal. And now on Bloomfield Avenue, somewhere in Montclair, there is a medicinal dispensary. So, you know, the town paid all the legal fees, paid, you know, all the necessary fees associated with the cost. And so I think that, you know, it's a little premature just to give it an ordinance banning recreational or eliminating it in certain zones when the state law has not been enacted to preempt it and to do the opposite. Montclair learned the hard way and spent thousands of dollars in attorney's fees with respect to that zoning law or that zoning case. So I understand the concern, but
Did they change that ordinance? Did they
Well,
change
no,
that ordinance
what-
after they were already?
No, what happened is the appellate court allowed the medicinal marijuana license to be at that location.
So they had no
even-
choice.
They had no choice, but.
So it was granted and then they changed it. That's how they got.
No. It was denied in the zoning board, and then it was approved or reversed in the appellate court. So, again, the Montclair paid a lot of money for that associated appeal. So I think that out of prudence and out of caution, since we do not have the bill in hand, we've only heard bits and pieces out of it. They're not letting us see the bill. You know, I got a bill in May that has changed substantially. I mean, you know, it's 100 pages long. So, you know, to not allow the due diligence and the zoning questions that you raise, I think is a mistake that you need to.
Mr. Emma, I'd like to just give you a real-world example of why there's such ambiguity with this. So, as I mentioned earlier, seems from public reaction there has not been much objection to a medicinal dispensary. We don't know, and we've confronted this as the committee, that when this next iteration of the statute comes out, they may say we're going to grant X amount of more medicinal dispensary licenses. Right now, I believe there's 6 statewide. They may say we're going to increase that to 25. We don't know. But we also don't know if they say, well, we're going to now allow medicinal dispensaries to also sell adult use marijuana. So then we have a problem, right, from this point is, well, if the community says they want medicinal, but certain people say we don't want adult use, but adult use can be sold in a medicinal dispensary, then that forces us to ban the medicinal dispensary to get to the point that you want. And so we're in a very, very difficult spot because there's ambiguity in the law. So I don't like that you're using the word stall tactic because stall implies some nefarious motive. And as a member of this committee, and I will defend my council colleagues on this, nobody's stalling anything. It's a very complicated situation, and we're trying to understand the law that nobody's ever seen. But there are real-world practical problems when you talk about that specific example. And so I want you to appreciate that, understand that, because maybe you haven't considered that aspect of it. But it's not that simple, and it's not that clear-cut.
I just want you to know where I'm coming from. You know, this should have been looked at before. And then we're at the 11th hour, the police chief comes and asks for an ordinance, and now suddenly we're gonna have a committee It seems like we're taking our time with the committee.
What would you prefer us to do? Just blindly pass a law that says we're not going to allow any marijuana in
Why
the
don't you just
borough?
adopt the Elbridge ordinance?
Because what if we don't want to do that? What if we say, you know what, we think medicinal
Well,
would make
you
sense?
asked me what I would do. I would
No,
say
no, I
adopt
asked
the-
what would you like us to do? So I said, would you like us to just blindly pass a law that says we're going to totally deny any marijuana sale or grow in this borough? Or would you rather us look at it, look at the technical aspects, look at the zoning aspects, and try to make the most informed decision?
Sure, and then.
So that's what we're doing. Oh, and then do what you want.
Yeah.
Oh, that's very convenient.
Yes.
I wish I could do that in life,
I mean,
but
this is absolutely insane that we're debating this today.
why is it insane that we're debating this issue? This is a modern day issue in this state, and we're trying to be responsible and make a good decision for this borough. And everybody comes up here and tells us that, you know, we rush things, we fight too much, we argue too much. Well, we're sitting here actually having an intelligent discussion, trying to get all the facts, and then you say that we're not doing our job.
Okay. All right.
I don't think you can have it both ways, Phil.
All right, let me just give you a couple of facts, and then I'll wrap it up, all right? So I don't know if you saw the USA Today, October 6th article. Marijuana causes more damage to teen brains than alcohol. Marijuana use may pose a greater risk to developing brains in teenagers than alcohol consumption, according to a new study last week. The analysis published Wednesday by the American Journal of Psychiatry found that cannabis had a greater short and long-term consequence than alcohol on 4 key components of teens' memory. And then that's a problem. And then this is what I don't want to see for our town, okay? May 16th, 2018, Bay Area, California, horrific traffic collision Tuesday night on Interstate 880 in Fremont that claimed 3 lives is just the latest in a string of deadly wrecks involving cannabis-impaired drivers. If you want to get earlier, September 14th of this year in Las Vegas, a man struck and killed 2 people outside of a South Point hotel casino, and he admitted to smoking marijuana before the crash. I don't want to see that in Saraville. That's why I think this is like an insane thing that we're even debating. And if we could stop this from coming into our town, then we should just do it. Medical marijuana.
How would
is
that
different.
stop it? Explain how that would stop it. If we just decided not to have people sell it, you think it's not going to come here?
I think it sends a message, and then we don't have that in our town.
You can go to South River and buy it and then bring it back. It's not illegal to possess. It's also illegal to drive under the influence of marijuana, whether it's legal or not. So the facts that you just recited, which I don't doubt are true, they don't change the fact that you're not allowed to drive under the influence of marijuana today or ever.
But legalizing it compounds the problem.
But we're not legalizing. That's the state's
Well, the
responsibility.
The state's
from the
legalizing
state.
it. Did you vote for Craig Coughlin? Did you vote for Yvonne Lopez? Did you vote for Joe Vitale? They did it, not us. We're just trying to figure out how we can deal with this at a municipal level in terms of land use. Because that's what this really comes down to. It's not an opinion on whether marijuana is good or bad. Depends on what we can legally do to make this the most responsible outcome for the borough.
And I totally agree with the USA Today article. I don't think teenagers should be using it.
Sure. But it wouldn't be legal anyway. Aren't we? I mean, we don't know the state statute, of course, but I think it was going to be 25 years old that you'd be able to purchase it. I don't even know. But, well, obviously, that's the whole point, right? Is I don't even know.
The current proposal on the table for New Jersey calls for a legalization of home delivery.
And a legalization of growth in the house, which I believe we cannot deal with because that's beyond our jurisdiction. We cannot tell people they can't grow marijuana plants in their homes if it's legal within the state.
Listen, I hope you guys work this out. I think it's a mistake.
You know, we're trying that.
We
That presents a
can
whole nother
wordsmith this
legal
all
issue.
night to make it sound
The current
rosy, but-
proposal would make New Jersey, I think, one of only 4 states that would allow the home delivery. Can we legally do anything about that?
I don't think so.
We really don't know yet. Probably not.
And that's the issue, is that legally, we do not know what recourse we have under the state statute. And so there's been a number of discussions by the committee and its members, you know, from the professionals putting out phone calls to Susan Gruhl, you know, talking, getting all the reading material, having public meetings. So again, this is really just a due diligence period, and I appreciate your concern, you know, for the accidents and I read that quote, or read the USA Today article. It was just in yesterday's paper, the day before yesterday. It was down in the Asbury Park Press. So I get it, but again, we're just trying to do our due diligence as to what limitations and what remedies the Borough of Saraville would have with respect to the statute.
My fear is that if nothing is done and the law is signed, I mean, that almost guarantees businesses could come into Saraville.
You know, I disagree with that because there, if in fact what I've been reading over the last number of days, there is an opt-out. There is a provision for the borough to take certain remedies. I don't know if that's accurate. I'm only reading trade journals that I get every day. And based on what I'm reading, the state law will allow an opt-out period. I just don't know because I can't tell you because I haven't seen the bill. The bill hasn't been released yet.
Wasn't the latest proposal 180 days for the opt-out?
There was an opt-out
Yes.
provision. I remember
That's the
reading
last one
100, I remember reading 180 days, and someone's indicated to me that that's changed also to extend that opt-out period. I don't know because I haven't seen the bill.
And
Yeah,
Phil,
my other concern is that we do jump the gun, and we do put an ordinance in effect, and we do get struck down in court, and the gas station next to the high school or the facility across the street from Arliss School applies to get a permit in there,
Yep.
and we get struck down, now it's right across from our school.
Let's get
We
it
need to be
right.
smart about it.
We could make an ordinance that would make everybody feel good, and it would do nothing.
Ineffective.
Well, I hope you do it right, but I hope you,
I mean,
We're
what
not
Old
dragging
Bridge
our
did,
feet,
for
and
all
then-
I know, they're spur of the moment, we don't want it in our town anywhere, might get thrown out, and then they're really behind the eight ball, whereas if we do it right, we won't be, and they will be. It's not, you can't just do things to make people feel good when you're not really protecting the people by doing it right.
this is a highly technical problem. And, Mary just leaned over to me and she says, well, wait, how do you get it in the mail? The mail's federally regulated, and this is still a controlled substance at the federal level. I said, yeah, but UPS and FedEx can transport it. So you're ending up with the problem where it's like, yeah, you really are handcuffed kind of everywhere you turn. There's like another level of complication. And so, yeah, so it doesn't come in the federal mail. It comes in UPS, it comes in Amazon. We can't stop that. We can't stop you growing into your house. We don't have the authority to do that. So it's just not that simple. And I'm trying to express that to you. I know you and I are obviously on philosophical different sides about marijuana, but where I think we got to meet and where we all have to meet is the practical and legal aspect of this, which is really complicated. And we're trying to do the right thing, but it's just not black and white.
Want to wrap it up? Thanks.
Thank you.
Phil.
Jim?
Thank you, Mayor. Jim Robinson, 11 Burrell Square. You know, over the years, I've worked in county government, state government, local government. I've worked in land use in New Jersey, and over those years, I've seen a lot of terrible things happen. A lot of professionals make millions and millions of dollars because decision makers rushed into making decisions before they knew all the facts. So I think the council is right in making sure that they know all the facts before they rush into any decision. I have questions on 348, 349, 350, and 351. First, thank you all members of the governing body, members of the council for approving resolution 348. Mayor, are you going to sign that resolution?
Haven't read it yet.
Pardon me?
Have not read it yet.
It was read in full.
I get it. I haven't read it yet.
Yes, but the clerk read it in full.
I understand, Jim. I understand what you said.
Okay, so are you going to sign it?
I haven't read it.
Okay, do you have a copy?
Jim, in my time, I will address it.
Okay, well, you said once before, Mayor, that you signed everything an attorney hands you. So, Mr. Dupont, would you hand the mayor a copy of that resolution? Of course, that's how we got into this problem in the first place, so maybe not.
Move
Okay,
along,
with
Jim.
respect to 349, the transfer, how much property is involved in that?
I think it's under 1 acre.
Okay, a little less than an acre. And is there consideration for that? Is there money? Are we getting money for that, or are we just giving them that?
Oh, I know what it was. It was the attorney's fees that we were going to be charged to the tune of a couple of $100,000, I believe. But yes, it was, they were going to, we were going to, by the judge's order, have to pay the attorney's fees for National Lead in reference to the co-litigation that they were brought into because of all the things going on. So what we did was eliminated those fees.
Okay, so there
with
was a
that.
trade-off.
There
then.
was,
And you
there
think
was.
that's in the best interest? Okay,
Yes,
all right.
it was under the
I
advice.
asked that
Are they
because
not
my
also
friends in
contributing to the
Melrose.
road construction? Was that-
Yes, there were other components within the agreement. I don't necessarily know if that was, one for one on that, but
Okay.
I know that it wasn't definitely the attorney's fees.
Thank you. I got here early. There were not copies of 350 and 351 on the table. I don't know if people scooped them up or not, but there were copies of the others. They are very, very important.
Terry's
Just like the
confirming.
mayor, I like to read those things.
Terry was confirming they were out there, but they might have been, there were a lot of people, I think, that were
Okay.
here. We
Are
can
there
get,
any
the-
extra copies? Because I would,
can we get those? I mean, they're public though. Yeah,
thank you.
well, I mean,
Okay, and
if other people were given the opportunity to have it here, he's here, why make them search?
okay, and the council has a public safety committee, don't they?
Yes.
And would the public safety committee's job be to address things such as the parking issue that Mr. Krzyzewski talked about?
That would make sense, I would think, yes.
I mean, you do, those are standing committees of the borough.
Yes, in consultation with the police chief and the other, in professional
Okay.
individuals.
And those are approved by the governing body on reorganization day, right?
Every time.
Okay. I'd ask the attorney, under the borough form of government, and it's been a while, I did a lot of work with Title 40 when I used to work in the legislature. Under the borough form of government, can the mayor appoint council people to council committees? Or is that something that
No,
is
it's my
approved by the governing body?
No, it's my understanding the mayor can, with the advice and consent of the council.
With the advice
without-
and consent of the council?
Without the, I don't have the ordinance in front of me, Jim.
Jim.
Thank you. Called you Jeff, sorry, Jim.
Okay, I think we should take a look at that because, ordinarily, when committees are appointed, they're appointed at reorganization and the governing body consents to those, and it is.
I'm almost positive it says something like during the year, if something arises, the mayor
Okay.
can appoint a committee.
We'll take a look. It would be a good
Sure it
thing
does, yeah.
to know that. And
I think you know what it is. It's
one other
it's a
thing
local
I've
rule.
said,
You know our
well, two
bylaws.
other things. The next thing is, I've said many times that I would come back to the council to ask the status on the potential senior housing on Ernston Road over by the mini mall, the one that the Housing Authority has recommended, the one that potentially scored very high and could get federal funding. Has the council discussed that since the last time I asked?
I know that we were considering it in the next round.
Yeah.
We'll need new housing.
I think that's something that's been brought to Susan Gruhl to continue to watch, as well as Mr. Serenian, because we do have the fourth round obligation coming up. I have to be honest with you, I think all eyes were on this particular
I understand that.
agreement at this point, but it's not far from our thought process.
I
It's still
understand, I
something
very much appreciate how much work, time, effort, and energy went into doing what has been done and getting to this point, at least on the part of the council. I appreciate that, but, we do have to look forward, and I am going to continue to raise that. And my last question is, Mayor, have you yet had a time to read that resolution?
Next question, Jim.
Yeah, my next question would be, Mayor, have you had time to read Resolution 348, which was read in full?
that all you have,
And
Jim?
which was part,
Then
I think
wrap
it
it
was
up
part of the
and sit
packet that
down.
was distributed,
Wrap it up and sit down.
that council was
Jim.
given, that was in the packet that was
Wrap
given
it
to
up
all
and
members of
sit
the governing
down,
body?
Jim. Wrap it up.
Yes.
That is
Did-
correct, Mike.
Yes,
Before you
that's
voted on this evening, did all members of the council have the opportunity to read that resolution?
Yes,
And we were briefed and explained.
And did you all before you voted on it?
yes.
Yes.
Okay, so the only one who hasn't read it then would be the mayor?
Says he did.
Okay, well, Mayor, I see you're signing things. Are you signing that?
Sit down, Jim.
No,
done.
Mayor, I asked a question.
down.
Are you
Bring him to a seat. You're done.
I can't
Jim,
ask a council?
You're a wise guy, so go sit
I'm
down.
asking this,
Go sit
and I
down.
am asking this because the
Bye,
resolution
Jim.
says,
Bye, Jim.
if you don't sign it,
Time out.
the council
Bye,
president
Jim.
will.
He's not being out of control here. He's asking
See ya.
a question.
No, he's asking a question.
I am-
Give us 5 minutes.
Just because you don't like the question, Mayor,
I'm
doesn't mean
within
you
my
escort a
constitutional
resident
rights.
out of here.
Two people spoke earlier, one for 32 minutes, one for 13 minutes. I started at 9:29.
We're up here on the
There's no
council.
reason for me to sit down. I'm asking a question about a very important matter. The resolution says
I
if the
told
mayor
you.
does not sign it, the council president will. I have an interest in this. I've had an interest in this. My neighbors were here. There were 19 people here this evening because they want to make sure that this gets signed. And we want to know, Mayor, if you're not going to sign it, will you give it to the council president to sign it, which it says, and which you should know if you read it or if you listened when it was read out loud. And Mayor, I think it's a shame. I'll sit down, but I think it's a shame that you haven't read something, that you said you haven't read something as important as this. I think it's a shame,
Go
Mayor.
sit down,
And
Jim.
you should be ashamed of yourself.
Go sit down.
I'll sit down.
Go sit down. Ken?
Thank you, Mayor. Ken Olszewski, 108 North Edward Street. First thing I'd like to do is say something as a public service. There's nothing to do with me personally, but I keep coming to this microphone and telling you that people complain to me about not hearing council meetings. I do not reveal the name of the people because they didn't authorize me to. But I can tell you I was at a wake 2 weeks ago, I believe, for Shirley Myros, and maybe some of you were there, and several people came up to me continuing to complain about not being able to hear meetings. One person asked me if the members on the dais could have a mic attached to them. I did a little survey tonight, sitting back there, and when you're here, it's not a big problem. I don't know what it is on TV because obviously I sit here, I'm not going to go home and watch it on TV. I heard Vicky very well. I heard the mayor fine. I heard Steve fine. I didn't hear Dan very well. And Pat, somebody told him, wasn't talking into the microphone, heard him a little better after he did that. So to the people out there watching, I want to say, I did my job. They're still saying they can't hear. I don't know. I talked to Councilman Melendez about this. Maybe we need a bigger wand that we can wind down. They tell me, can I hear you better with the hand mic than I do with the new mic? Maybe we need a wand that you can, I'm just saying, I told Councilman Melendez this, that you can get more down to your face. I'm not a kangaroo, so I can't get my mouth maybe up as far as I'd like to this mic. But I think it should be addressed, and I'm going to say again for the public who might be out there, please express these concerns to the public. When the mayor says, hi, I'm Mayor O'Brien, how can I begin helping you? Tell them, the sound system stinks. It's terrible, because that's what they tell me. Obviously, I have nothing to do with it. I just wanted to get it out to you as one point. You know, when people talk about assigning committees, I go back to the time when they were trying to site the mass burn incinerator in Sayreville. And we got a hold of a pamphlet put out by pro-incinerator people, how to get an incinerator sited in a town. And the first thing it said, don't select the town that's higher socioeconomic because there are too many people are going to be smart enough to fight it well, and people who have enough money to hire the right lawyers. But another thing they said was form committees to keep the people busy. You know, busy work. You know, like the teacher did when you're in school and they had a tough night the night before. they had you work in a workbook, do busy work. So that's, when I hear committees, that naturally comes to me. Evelyn Apgar, who was a reporter for the Home News when we were here, and we had a small contingent of great people. People that some you've heard the name of, Julian Caput, Ross McBride, Dan and Helen Murray, who were great, but unfortunately moved out of town in the middle, and so on and so forth. A lot of great people fighting this. And Evelyn Apgar's headlines in the Home News would be, she called us, she had a name for it, which doesn't come to mind at the moment, but that they kept the meeting going because they let us, there were so many people, they'd let us have a public portion, that you didn't get to business, council business, until 11 o'clock at night. And that's when they started asking about committees. So I get a natural suspicion when they talk committees. And I agree with Mr. Robinson, we already have a public safety committee. This gentleman who's talking about Pershing Avenue, I don't know the width of Pershing Avenue, but I think, Mayor, you're right in the sense that we could change the name of Pershing Avenue to probably 20 or 25 other streets in town that are no wider, so I would assume they have the same problems. I'm hearing out there, maybe there's somebody influential that is trying to get this for some other purposes or their own convenience. I don't know if that's true, but I think that's what people like Mr. Kucheski, I know his dad from when he was a police officer, his aunt was a Mitnick, I believe, that lived on North Edwards. I know the family a long time. I went to school with them. I'm sorry? Okay, yeah. So I don't think their complaints are just nonsense. I think they're valid. Nobody wants to be singled out. And I agree, this wasn't handled the right way. So let's try to be fair to all residents and make sure we're not singling any person or any street out in the borough. And the final thing I want to talk about is what Mr. Emma discussed, and that was the marijuana. I'm not going to give you my opinion because I came here a couple of council meetings ago and told you. I don't know what the rush is within the state. Let me say this. We elected a governor. We didn't elect a dictator. We live, hopefully, in a democracy. And one of the reasons, I think we all know, we elected this governor because of the party he represented. After the last governor and his party, I think Mickey Mouse would have got elected governor. It doesn't mean that we have to, we have to listen to a Governor Moonbeam #2 and suggest we do everything that he says because he might have had a campaign to legalize marijuana. It doesn't mean that everybody agrees with that. And we do have a legislature. We have people who represent us. Somebody talked about some of their names or mentioned all of them tonight. My first question on marijuana, did the governing body pass a resolution to the legislature and to the governor saying they're opposed to the legalization of marijuana? Did we do that? We did not do that. So in effect, you're telling the 45,000 residents of Saraville that you're not really opposed to it, or you haven't taken a stand on it. I think one of our councilmen came right out in front, Councilman Grillo, and said he supports it, which is his right, and that's fine. But I think it would be helpful. Yeah, I haven't come up here and praised you that much, but it's a learning experience. After you call people liars, I think you learn from it. I didn't hear you do that anymore. And I sat there, as you know, for quite a while, and you learn, number one, you never sit there and call anybody a liar, unless they really have talking names about your wife or yourself calling you a crook. So that was a learning experience. But he at least came out and said how he felt about it. I think if you're really serious about marijuana as an issue in town, You'll pass a resolution to the governor, you know, you represent us. You represent 45,000 people. We don't have a ward system in town. So you represent 45,000 people. I think the mayor, I have a quote here from the mayor in New Jersey, some New Jersey publication from February, was it the Home News? And the mayor said, well, this says the Sayreville mayor, Kennedy O'Brien, who is strongly opposed to legalization. I do not believe that legalizing an illegal substance for the sole purpose of tax revenue is a good reason, O'Brien said. Marijuana is the gateway to stronger drugs, including opioids. O'Brien also noted that in states where marijuana has been decriminalized, the percentage of traffic fatalities where the driver tested positively for marijuana rose dramatically. So I would assume that what I'm reading here is something that came from you. I think that was in February, Mayor. Unless you change the position, I guess we know somebody else on the governing body with a position. But I think the voters have a right to know the position of the people. And again, this thing about committees, I think, you know, I know Mr. Emma, he has 3 children. He has 3 children who are of the age now that this can be a problem. And I've told you some of the deals. I liken this very much to tobacco. I could stand here and give a 45-minute speech on the marketing of tobacco. Okay, I'm not going to do it, Mayor, but this is a parallel. I think there's a lot of parallel here. And you know, one of the deals, the most likely scenario that a young girl would start smoking was if her best friend smoked. Secondly, if somebody in the household smoked, a parent or both parents or an adult sibling, and the most likely in the household was the mother. And you know why that is? Because the father kept cigarettes in his pocket. The mother kept them around the house on the tables, etc. So it's access. And I think legalizing marijuana is access. It gives more people access. It gives kids access. It says, well, it can't be all bad because our government legalized it. They wouldn't do anything to hurt us, would they? So I think there are people, well, I don't have young children. I don't have grandchildren, unfortunately. So I don't have that particular concern, and I don't think they're going to sell it on North Edward Street. But I do think it's a problem. I think it should be addressed. I think other people are looking at it. And quite frankly, I don't think that some of what you heard here is all wrong. That it sounds to us like it could be delaying tactics. It could be excuses. It sounds a little bit like what I told you, the deal where they said with the incinerator, let's form committees. So be a little careful. Make sure the committee is productive. And make sure you take a stand on it. We expect you to take a stand on it. That's why you're sitting up there. Thank you.
Ken, Mayor, I agree with you on sending a resolution to our assembly people,
Okay.
telling them that we are not in favor of it, and I would do that right away. But we must take our time on this zoning ordinance to get it right. But I have no problem. I think it's a great idea that we just let them know in Sayreville, the council is not in favor of legalizing it for recreational use.
Absolutely. And we're all talking about recreational use. Well, thank you very much. And you know, they work for us. We don't work for them. Coughlin, Vitale, always said, they represent us. I mean, they should be telling us, and the governor, what they're going to do. They work for the people of Sayreville, as far as we're concerned. And we should hold their feet to the fire. Because if we don't, you know what? They'll do whatever they want and whatever in their best interest. That's how this works, from Washington right down to Sayreville and every municipality in the nation.
I would support Mary in that resolution as well. I feel the same way.
Mike, do you
that's-
think you can compose something by the next meeting and we can get that through them? Because they're still playing with that, and if we let them know, okay?
Yep.
Ruth Ann?
Mayor, I just have a question for Ken. Ken? Yes. Since Mr. Robinson brought it up, would you be able to send Dan or the clerk a copy of the Ernston Road Senior project? I know you and I had talked about it 2 years ago. I would like to see it again, just to refresh my memory. I think it's a really valid project.
Yes.
And so if it's an issue with round 4, it was brought up tonight, why waste any more time? Let's look at it. So if you
Thank
wouldn't
you.
mind sending that, I'd like to see it
I will
myself.
get our executive director to dig it out. Of course, a lot of the ship has sailed, but whether it could be reconstructed and in what form. The proposal, I'm sure we can dig out, and we will forward it to you. I'll
Great.
make a note of
I
it.
appreciate that.
Ruth Ann?
Ruth Ann Mahoney, 2 Gerard Place in Parlin. I just have 2 things. One, last time I was here at the meeting, I inquired about North Ernston Road by ShopRite and the walkway and the Chase Bank. Did anybody get a chance to look into that?
It was an email given to the chief, who gave it to traffic, and I don't have a report yet.
Thank you. And my second thing is, Mayor, I'm sure you'll read that ordinance and do the right thing. Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Being no other questions, I'll entertain a motion. Jim?
Thank you, Mayor. Through you to the borough attorney. If there is a resolution that provides that if the mayor declines to sign a resolution, it will then be signed by the council president, what's the mechanics of that? How long does the mayor get to continue with his nonfeasance and declination before the council president signs the,
If the mayor doesn't sign it this evening, the council president could sign it.
I'm sorry,
If the mayor doesn't sign it this evening, the council president can sign it.
yes, what I'm asking is, how long can the mayor continue with his nonfeasance for a day, a week, a month, a year?
The council, it's the ordinance that they're talking about.
I'm sorry?
The council president can sign it this evening.
The
It's
council
and/or-
president can sign it this evening?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, fine. It is ironic that the mayor won't sign this, and his signing of the agreement without the council approval is what got us into this 2-year, multi-million-dollar mess to begin with. Okay, thank you very much.
Are there any other questions? Being no other questions, I'll entertain a motion to close the public portion.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
With that, I'll entertain a motion to close. We'll then take a 5 or
Motion
10
to
minute
adjourn.
break and come back. Motion made, is there a second? All in favor? Opposed? What's that?
I'll walk out.
I know, I know. And you're kind of getting your answer from, we'll move forward. It's the right thing to do, to hear from the residents. So, no, you want to get the residents together and have a meet with the committee. That's what you want to do.
pass this? Remember?
It was like a perfunctory, I don't, even-
we pass a lot of things, to be honest. My thing is, everything's a public portion, and we have discussion, people out there.
Oh, my concern is that I know where it came from. I know where it was generated, you know, and that's the thing. So it's just,
But in the future, I mean, if you would've came on tomorrow,
I would have had
it would've been valid.
and I would have had
For us to make a decision, because no one's here, right? We asked people, and everyone's like,
Exactly. But my thing is, there was nothing.
but you know what though?
But I hear what the mayor says, like, there should be some type of notification.
Unlike a zoning or a planning where you gotta let everybody know in 200 feet.
That's my thing. I mean, I do electrical. If I have to put a generator in with the town and I have to set it up, I have to apply for a variance or, you know, and go through the council to seek approval. No one notified us. Not a single resident on that street.
It should have come from me.
And
We
there
would
should
work, but however, it's not written into law that that is what I have to do as
Yes.
a
to go on Phone Street and say, you know, it's less than what mine should be.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, but you go on both sides of Washington Road.
Exactly, you could go up on Laverne and Harris, you can't get access.
This was all right.
This all stems from one individual's complaint that never came to us. You know, and that was my biggest argument with Paul. That's why I wanted everyone to hear it. That was my whole point. Again, it really affects my life. You know, and it's something that he doesn't need to have on his conscience, and that's how I believe it. And I believe the street works with this zigzag pattern. And I don't see how, you know, a fire truck needs to open up that far on, you know, again, the street's only, it's 23 feet wide. And it can be, you know, it can be much larger. This is just 60 years of people deciding, you know, the town's not doing anything about it, I'll put a railroad tie. You know, and it's simple, you can put a railroad tie and put it in the curb. And that's the thing, and catch spaces. But again, my thing is I just wanted to be heard. And I wish that, like, you know, I mean, I had the fire marshal, even that, I never saw those trucks on that street. This was something that, you know, you would think you would visually see going on, a study. Yeah. Exactly. Exactly, and that's the thing. Yeah. But, yeah, and it just goes out. But, I mean, that's the sale. But again, I don't know what my, you know, where I go with it from here. I'm gonna listen to the committee, talk to, you know, members of my neighborhood. But again, I'm very visual and out there in the community. So if I had to put something out in the public, I'll put something out to the public. And, you know, just for other people to know in town that this could happen to you without your knowledge. You know, and that's my biggest concern. I mean, my father went to high school here, I went to high school here, always promoted and you know, back this town. And this is what I get, you know, and he gets slapped in the face, and this is what you gotta take. Based on one individual's assessment, kinda, you know, it stinks, so. But I hope to talk to the committee, I hope to talk to my neighbors and come up with a resolution. And, good to see you, Jay. My God, it's been, 30 years, I think, something like that, you know? Yeah, I hate to get any help, and, you know.
No, you know where they just redid the bank on Washington Road, Amboy Bank? Then you have a street, then you have a second street, that's Pershing. Well, it's only 3 blocks, so it connects in this area. It's hard to figure out. But only this street. Right? Who are you waiting on? Waiting on Dan. You see Dan up there? Steve?
Street. Yeah, and there's a legal jeopardy, like you said, to change it. Sure there is. Absolutely. God forbid something happens, he would tell you.
Good.
Then. Take care.
Okay, with that, I'm going to call the meeting to order. Would everyone would salute to the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Terry, statement of publication.
Mayor, take notice that this agenda session meeting of the Mayor and Borough Council being held on this 9th day of October 2018 has been advertised and posted in accordance with Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231, Public Law 1975.
Roll call.
Councilpersons Buchanan.
Here.
Grillo.
Here.
Kilpatrick.
Present.
Lembo. Melendez. Novak.
Here.
We go right to committee reports.
Yes, Mayor.
Administration and Finance, Councilwoman Novak.
Yeah, I have no departmental reports. Under B, I'd like approval for the bingo and raffle licenses 1 and 2.
Any objections? Next item.
I would like a motion to receive and file the notice from Public Service on the petition.
There a second?
Second.
Anything else, Councilwoman?
Progress, Mayor.
Thank you. Planning and Zoning, Councilman Lumbo.
Thank you, Mayor. Move the following minutes and reports be received and filed. Board of Adjustment minutes, August 22nd. Planning Board minutes of August 15th.
Second.
Next item.
Receive and file resolution adopted by the Zoning Board, referring the report of 2016 and 2017 applications to the governing body.
Second.
And also receive and file Planning Board resolution memorializing the October 3rd meeting, Journey Mill Center final major site plan. Receive and file.
Anything else, Councilman?
Other than that, progress, Mayor.
Thank you. Public Safety, Councilman Buchanan.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that the following minutes be received and filed. The Board of Health minutes of September 6, 2016.
Second.
Next item.
Number 2, as we had already spoken a little bit about tonight regarding the recreational marijuana, we were supposed to have a subsequent meeting with the public, and we were trying to get dates. If we could try to accomplish that tonight. I know people's schedules.
We're looking for full council, not
The
just
full
committee?
council, the full council with the public.
Yeah, I'd like to set that. You actually took one of my talking points.
I thought Terry was going to look into
Sorry.
making sure that it wasn't
I
gonna
sent you a whole
conflict.
list of dates I was available. Did you get them? Oh, yeah, that's true. I gave it to you for 2 weeks in advance.
No, I didn't get everybody's response.
Okay. I know once we get into November, it's going to be very difficult, so if we could do it before then.
Could we look at maybe the week of the 22nd? Could we have a discussion on that?
We may be having a hearing on the 22nd at 6.
The week of, the week of, though.
I heard that, but is there any dates that you want to suggest?
My
The
phone.
Board of Adjustment meeting on the 24th?
How about the 23rd?
I'm good the 23rd, 25th.
Hold on a second.
As am I.
I'm good.
I'm not good the 25th or the 24th.
About the 23rd.
23rd, I think I can do. It looks like I can do.
We all in for the 23rd,
Steve, you good?
7 o'clock?
That'll work.
Here?
Sure.
Okay, Terry, you'll
Certainly will.
announce it. Also send it to the Board of Education, ask them if there is a way that they can give it to the parents of the kids, in lieu of the fact that it conflicted with some of the parent-teachers nights before.
Can-
This is only about, it's same as before, it's only recreation.
Can we just confirm real quick, make sure there's nothing on that? I thought that's what we were going to do, have Terry just look to make sure it doesn't conflict with anything with the school. Because we did out the individuals.
Well, Dr. Labby, I have no knowledge of what.
Well, they have it on
school
their
dates.
Facebook, they have it on their pages, on their Board of Ed page, schools.
Anything else, Dan?
Yes, Mayor. When we get around Halloween time, the Facebook pages and everything start erupting on how Sayreville didn't do a curfew. I'd like to get input and see if we can have something for the next meeting on
Halloween or Mischief Night?
both. I know, because people don't want people knocking on their doors after a certain time as well on Halloween night as well. So I don't know what other towns are doing. We could look at that. But I would like to have something for the next meeting, just to have it passed, just for, public sanity.
What's the time you're looking for?
That's what I'm saying. I don't know what other towns are doing. You can't say dark because
You
dark.
get
I think South Amway does one. They do.
Old Bridge does.
Yeah.
I don't know, I don't recall. I think it's 9 o'clock.
Mike, what do you know?
Yeah, Red Bank does it at 8 o'clock.
Okay, so if we could just
Anything
do a
else?
couple towns. Lastly, I'm going to be trying, I know the county, I believe the county requires new building projects to start having charging stations for electric vehicles. I'm going to see if we can start looking into doing that for our zoning as well, when new buildings get put up, putting charging stations in, because that is the future.
Did we end up doing that? I know we looked into that for the park and ride for the park. We had brought the electrician in over there, I think, to take a look at it, but I don't know how successful we were.
Okay. if we
I
could
like it
look
for
in-
the
Yeah.
new construction.
So anytime we get new construction coming in, we can do charging stations, and we could also look at our park and ride, see if it's feasible over there as well.
I know we did do, I think, Jay, do you remember when we did that? What was that, 2 years ago? The charging stations that we looked into for the cost and putting that into the park and ride areas?
It was done at the park and ride. I thought it was done, and then we just did some at the police station as well.
Okay.
Are there grants available for that, Jay?
I'm not sure here.
I mean, do people pay for the charge, or is the charge free?
It's not a charge.
There's actually what happens, I know with Tesla, you have your credit card on file, and every time you plug in, it automatically comes off your credit card. So we can actually
Well, no,
maybe,
the question is, are we giving it away for free? Or
well, that's one of the things that we want to look into, maybe those companies that are building these vehicles provide these, because I don't know if they're car specific, but that's something we have to look in.
Well, I see them mostly up on the Connecticut highways where you pull into a rest stop and there'll be a charging area.
You're starting to see more at Wawa's. I've seen them at Rutgers, at the Rutgers school.
Wawa and Woodbridge has it.
Yeah, they just put them in, so
You
things
pay
that we
for
need
it?
to look into.
Yeah, you
Pay for the charge?
yeah.
Yeah, your card's on file already.
And I
with
guess if you
Tesla.
don't have a Tesla, say, I guess you have like a Chevy Volt.
Right.
I don't know if you pay.
They have it at the
just like
mall
with
down
gas.
in.
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know if they're car specific, but that's something, all things that we need to look into, but that's something I'll be looking
A
into.
lot of the malls have it, like Tinton Falls and things like
Correct.
that, Jersey Shore.
Okay.
Okay,
All right, so
other than-
take a look at it.
Other than
Anything
that,
else, Dan?
progress.
Thank you. Water, Recreation, Councilman Melendez.
Thank you, Mayor. Item A, the Recreation Advisory Board minutes of September 6, 2018, receive and file.
Next item.
As we talked earlier, we received a letter of resignation from Helen Bruno Raculia.
Second. Next item.
And events at the Rocketish Temple, October 19th, 7 p.m. to 1 a.m., the cultural event. October 20th, 9 a.m. to 7 p.m., groundbreaking ceremony. October 21st, 9 a.m. to 2 p.m., the medical camp. November 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 5 to 9, Diwali. And November 8th, various times. And November 17th, 4 p.m. to 9 p.m., all for New Year's Day celebrations.
Anything else, Councilman?
Just this Saturday was the annual Hit the Bricks race, and I want to thank the Recreation Advisory Board and everyone involved, and they raised $4,360 for the association. And lastly, we also had the dedication for George Diffin for his service to the community and all his years. It was a mayor proclamation. You know, I was there, and you know, on behalf of everyone, I said it was, you know, thank you. They, it's nice. It's George Diffin Park now, the park next to the soccer field. And there's a, if you go by there, there's a big rock with a big George Diffin, like a plaque built right into the rock, and it talks about his life. So it's really nice.
Anything else?
Just Friday, October 26th is the Halloween parade at Borough Field, 6:30. And that's it, progress.
Thank you. Water and Sewer and Environmental, Councilman Grillo.
Thank you, Mayor. I have no minutes or departmental reports, but I would like to receive and file a notice received from JCP&L in the matter of implementation regarding the establishment of a zero-emission certificate program.
Next item.
Also receive and file notices received from the U.S. Federal Energy Regulator Commission, which addresses the schedule for environmental review for the final environmental impact statement for the Transcontinental Gas Pipeline Company for the Northeast Supply Enhancement Project, and a notice of 30-day comment period. That is the pipeline that runs through the Morgan section of the borough.
Second.
Second.
Anything else, Councilman?
Yeah, just a quick note. You know, evidently there's going to be a resolution read next week about the recreational marijuana. We'll all vote as we feel. But I want to thank all of my colleagues. I think we're having a really good discussion about this really important issue. And it makes me really proud to sit up here and have a really informed debate with all of you. And so I just want the residents to know that we're working hard on this. We come from different viewpoints, but we're doing it the right way, we're doing it the smart way. So thank you guys for governing well. I think we're doing a great job on it.
Okay, thank you, Councilman. Public Works Council President.
Thank you, Mayor. I move the following minutes and reports be received and filed. Solid Waste Advisory Council minutes of September 11, 2018.
Second.
Second. Anything else?
I have no committee reports, but I do have a question. It was, actually, you know what? I'll hold on that. Never mind. Thank you. Progress, Mayor.
Okay, Business Administrators Report.
Thank you, Mayor. Authorization for the Borough Clerk to advertise for the receipt of proposals for professional services for 2019. Authorization to execute the residential maintenance grant agreement for the year 2019.
Next item.
Review and approval of 2019 council meeting schedule.
Next item.
Do we?
Did everybody get a
Did everybody
chance
get
to
a chance to
review
look
that
at it?
schedule? And does anybody have any comments?
Do I need to abstain?
Excuse me?
Do I need to abstain since I won't be here? No, seriously, I mean, I don't want to, going forward, I guess I can't vote on it?
I'm not going to be here.
But, all right. Then yes, I'm fully in support of it. Whatever you
Your
want.
opinion could be have a meeting every night.
I think we should.
Thanks, Steve.
Are there any?
I'm just trying to pull it up real quick, Mayor,
Meeting
before we go.
schedule?
I guess my biggest
The
question,
question was
there was another
January 1.
Exactly.
We had a
Discussion last
discussion
year.
on last January 1 about moving that meeting to the first Saturday of the month. And I thought we were all in agreement of that, and we could make accommodations for those organizations that have their ceremonies on, or their parties on January 1.
Fireman and first aid.
Yeah.
Way too far.
Yeah, I think we've been in agreement.
By the way, we need to bring up first aid, but huh? No, not the personnel issue, just what's happening in general. Okay, so let's do the council meeting. Any
Saturday?
objection?
On Saturday?
January 5th.
Saturday, January 5th, beginning at what time? The usual, 11 and 12?
Contact fire and first aid if they can carry it over till the 5th.
11.
Same times, right?
That's what I asked. I didn't get a response.
I'm fine with the same time, Terry.
Thank you.
Now, what about the newly elected? They have to be sworn in January 1st, don't they, Mike?
You don't have to be sworn in, because we've done it in the past.
7 days in which to hold.
Okay, okay.
And we also,
No meeting in between.
if I remember correctly, Mayor, you had sworn in a couple members before the date, too.
What's that, Dan?
If I remember correctly, there was a couple times where you sworn in beforehand, so,
Right,
to take effect on.
right, right. Okay, go ahead, Dan.
Authorization to award contract through a non-fair and open process to Evo Studios for the redevelopment of the Sayreville website in an amount not to exceed $18,700.
Next item.
Authorization to appoint Anthony Sesley to the title of Truck Driver Heavy in the Department of Public Works effective October 15th, 2018.
Next item.
Authorization to transfer laborer Connor Deacon to the Department of Public Works from the Water and Sewer Department.
Next item.
I want to add one thing under Public Works also. This past Saturday, through Recycling and Elise Barone, I don't know if you saw this, but on Main Street, from about the Columbia Bank going down to almost to as far down as Quick Check, the county has decided to mow the grass, and it just was a tremendous amount of litter that came out from cutting the grass. So through recycling and through a couple programs and grants, we were able to get people out there on Saturday. And if you look at it now, it is at the moment, it is pretty clean. At the moment, it's very clean. That amounted to 67 huge garbage bags full of garbage. So just to let everybody know. Appointing Sandra Verity as clerk in the Water and Sewer Department effective November 1st, 2018.
I have a question.
Dan and I spoke about that. We'd like to just hold on that for the moment and wait till Q1 of 2019. Due to a new billing system, we think potentially this hire might not be correct or necessary. So I want to give Dan an opportunity to audit that new billing process, if that's all right with the governing body.
I concur.
Next item.
Appointing Robert Carmella as laborer in the Water and Sewer Department effective November 1st, 2018.
Any objections?
And that's a replacement of somebody there?
Yes, that's the person who went, this Connor Deacon, that went from Public Works to, is going to Public Works from Water and Sewer. This person will replace Connor Deacon. And we also still have one more vacancy there.
Okay.
Thank you.
What I want Dan to do, I'm getting a lot of feedback from residents and about, we're having a problem manning our volunteer first aid. Forget any and all other issues. We have a real problem. And I'm very concerned that we're not delivering the first aid service in the manner in which it was once delivered, where you had somebody like Mary that made 2,000 calls a year. We just don't have, you know, the volunteers that are, or Kevin, we don't have the volunteers that did it. And I think what I'm very concerned about is there's going to be somebody in distress, and we're not going to have squads to send them. And my understanding is both squads have a manpower shortage. I'm not talking about eliminating our volunteer first aid, but we need to address this manpower shortage, and the question is how and why, and I'd like Dan to gather information, perhaps get a hold of the police chief, and see if there's a way of tracking the amount of calls that were able to be answered. And there's probably, it's kind of like the firemen. I mean, years ago, we had to allow guys that were over 65 to drive the fire trucks because we had a manpower shortage. So it's the same thing. You have to adapt to the times. The volunteer services did very well, and we're very grateful for generations here in Sayreville. But with more people working out of town than in town, it's not working anymore, is my understanding. So we need to stand up and to begin to address this and find solutions.
Mayor, just so you're aware, when we met with the two local hospitals, because it's now narrowed down to two, they were giving us all different possibilities. One of them was, you know, if a squad has an ambulance available, they will be called first. If not, I mean, we have been looking at all of the different
No,
possibilities.
I understand it, but I think now, I'm hearing it on too regular a basis that there was either substantial delays or no response. And so we're getting, before we have a terrible thing happen, I think it's incumbent upon us in our duties as elected officials to address this. So, and again, I'm not trying to diminish or discredit our volunteer people, but the reality, I mean, I have a stack of people that are resigning from the first aid because they're going on to higher education, they're getting transferred, different things happen in life. And Sayreville is not the Sayreville it was 20, 30, 40 years ago, when you had paternal companies like DuPont and Hercules that would allow the members of fire and first aid to leave their jobs to go on a call. We just don't have it. We don't even have the borough workers. We used to look to hire firemen and first aiders, and we allowed them to leave the borough jobs to go answer calls. We just don't have it anymore.
And Dan, we, just for the council's knowledge, we do have a monthly meeting with the two presidents of the first aid squads. Dan, do you think this is something that we should bring the presenters to, or do you think we should?
What do you mean, the presenters?
The presentations that we had gotten, or that we looked at, or we heard those two nights, not have them come to present to us, but to see if we can get some kind of proposals from them just to go over with those two presidents for that next meeting?
I think the two presidents of the squad should understand that there's major concerns.
Yeah.
And
But I think we should have that part as a presentation to discuss it with them.
Yep. I agree.
First discuss that there's there's a concern from the residents. Second, here are the presentations the proposals that we received from them, and here's what we want to look at.
Dan, I don't know if the police are tracking call response,
They do.
but let's take a look at it objectively, not critically, objectively. I'm not here to criticize the volunteers. We're here to make the thing work primarily for the residents of Sayreville.
One of the squads had expressed that they are getting to a concerned point during the days.
Yeah.
So
If
they
fire
understand as
works
well.
the same way.
Yeah, they understand as well.
Right.
But we don't want to eliminate them because they still want.
I imagine the weekend nights are probably, Friday, Saturday night are probably easier to staff
Yeah.
than Monday, Tuesday nights. Yeah. Okay, so we're all in agreement that we're gonna begin addressing this. So Dan, if you would set it up, and if you would get prepared for the next meeting to give a presentation on where the offers are, where our weakness is on call response, and how the whole thing would work, and what if any cost would come to the borough.
Don't you think the Public Safety Committee should meet on this with Dan and let them come back? You know, we like committees.
I beg your pardon?
We'll invite them to our next president's meeting.
What'd you say, Mary?
I said, I think that the Public Safety Committee should.
Okay, if they want to do it, have them do it.
Yeah, I'll invite them to the next.
But Dan's the business administrator, so he needs to make the presentation. Okay. So we'll have it for the next meeting. Dan, you okay with that? Okay. All right, CFO's report, Denise?
Emergency appropriation for legal.
Denise,
I'm sorry.
you're on TV.
No. Emergency appropriation for legal services. I will need a resolution for the next council
Okay.
meeting. Thank you.
Great. Anything else?
No, sir.
Okay, Borough Engineer Jay Cornell's report?
Thank you, Mayor. First item has to do with the underground storage tank project at the Crosland Pump Station. That's an ongoing project for a number of years. The DEP's come back to us saying we've got to do additional groundwater and soil testing, so we're looking for authorization to proceed with that work. And the second item is the Borough Hall boiler replacement. We're receiving bids for that project next Tuesday, so if everything's in order, we'd like to have a resolution awarding the contract at your next meeting.
Okay, any objections, anyone? Okay. Borough Attorney's report?
Yes, Mayor, just the authorization to execute a parking easement agreement between Highview Properties at Sayreville Urban Renewal LLC and the Borough of Sayreville for the use of the portion of its property as a parking lot for Morgan Hose and Chemical Company, number 1.
Okay. And with that, anything for executive?
No, sir.
All right, I'm going to open the public portion for questions or comments on any and all issues. Roseanne, Ruth, rather, Ruthann?
Kevin, you got something to say?
Okay.
Talk her into it.
Ruth Ann Mahoney, 2 Gerard Place, Parlin. I agree with the Halloween and mischief night curfew. I think 8 o'clock sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you, Ruth Ann. Kevin, did you want to speak at all? Okay. Kevin, for me personally, as a resident of Sayreville, and for me personally as the mayor of Sayreville, I thank you and I commend you for many, many, many years of selfless service to the people of our borough. You're an extraordinary man, and it is my hope you continue in what you have done and done so well for all these years. Thank you, Kevin. It's not ending, it's only changing.
Well, it might not be changing either. We have to make that decision, don't we?
Well, more players in it. Okay, with that, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Good night, Dan. Good night, Ricky. Mary, good night. Steve. Good night. Terry, talk to you in the morning.
Stay.
See you in the morning. No, I'm going to see you in the morning. I'll see you in the morning. Secret meeting. Don't confuse me. I'm tired.
Good night. So we only had one agreement with K-Land. Environmental